So welcome to our dream class, to Together We Dream. I'd like to start out with an invocation and to invite our own teachers and guides. I would invite you particularly to invite your own teachers and guides to accompany you here and guide your thoughts, and help us and ask for help in opening our hearts and our minds to spirit. When I begin this class, I ask for teachers to teach through me. And so I am asking for help to surrender to that. So together we acknowledge the presence of the masters and the grace of the Guru and the blessings and guidance of Mahavatar Babaji. Satgurnath Maharaj Ki Jai. And we just feel the spirit of our teachers and the energy and the vibration of the beautiful frequency of a beginner's mind settle over us, and a beautiful frequency of surrender to teaching and to learning. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you. So we are talking today about the principle of gender. We have so far in these sessions talked about mental transmutation. We've talked about the idea of the all, which is some would call Brahman. We've talked about the divine paradox. Well, the universe is, it also is not. That beautiful paradox. We've talked about the principles of correspondence, as above, so below as above, as within, so without. And we learned that everything above is reflected in everything below. Everything without is reflected in everything within. And we discovered that everything vibrates, from the tiniest atomic particle to the whole universe, to all the universes. And we learned that we had the power to change our state of mind, our state of being, by elevating our vibration, right? And then we studied polarity. We learned that everything operates within a spectrum between polar opposites, and that between those opposites, those poles, there's a constant swing back and forth, and that principle is rhythm. We discussed that too. Rhythm can be high frequency fluctuation across infinitesimal distances, a buzzing back and forth of billion times per second, and it can be a vast swing, as it is in the birth and death and rebirth of a universe. All those things are rhythm, and they all vibrate in rhythm. And because we do control our thoughts and actions along with the giant scale of vibratory frequencies that exist, we can move our thoughts and our actions along that scale toward a higher vibration. So last month we studied the principle of causation, which tells us really that all of these principles that we've studied run through everything on the physical plane and on the planes directly above it. So because nothing, as we've learned, exists in isolation, including our state of being. In other words, our mental state exists as a result of a whole consortium of causes and effects, right? And in our and causation itself dovetails with all these other little ideas that we've studied, not little ideas, all these other huge principles that we've discussed. It's complex. I mean, when it comes to your state of mind in any given moment, it comes down to a lot of causes. It comes down to your genetics, to your astrological blueprint. It comes from the trauma that's in your body. It comes from physical health, it comes from beliefs, from habits, from events around you, everything. Everything is part of this complex, vibrating, rhythmic, magnetic stream of constantly fluctuating causes that can affect everything, even your state of mind. Maybe even, especially, our state of mind. All right. So now let's talk about gender. If you read the chapter, you read that manifestation is a result of gender, right? Manifestation uses gender always. Creation uses gender on all planes, on even the plane of idea. There's a matching of the gender to create something different. So the all, as we've learned in the Kabbalion, is undifferentiated. It's all there is. It has no gender, but everything that proceeds from the all into creation does. Everything has a gender. And the office of gender is solely that of creating, producing, and generating, according to the Kabbalion. The office of gender is solely that of creating, producing, and generating. So that's the point of gender. And, you know, we see that reflected in the physical plane. Gender is the way the male and female come together to create physical children. That's reflected in the physical plane, but it doesn't have anything to do with really specific male and female elements. I mean, the energy of male and female is reflected in the physical, but it is not the same as the physical. Does that make sense? It's almost as if the physical is a metaphor for the larger. As above, so below, as below, so above. So as I was reading this, I kept having the question come to my mind that the splitting into genders had to happen in order for creation to occur. But also I had the thought, how is that different or the same from duality? And I'm really anxious for all of you to chime in on that, because it's been something that I thought about. And I even texted Munishwarji, and he's out of the country and in the midst of important contract negotiations, and he'll call me later. So I haven't heard from him yet, but he said he will call, and I'm sure he will. But I was thinking, I want to ask him about this. I want to discuss this with him. How is gender different from or the same as duality? Duality encompasses the idea of good or bad, and that in that way, it's, gender does not. It's not good or bad. We have traditionally, as the Kabbalion talks about, we have traditionally called it positive and negative, and negative has a connotation of bad, but it is not what is inferred by negative in the Kabbalion or in the Hermetic principles at all. So it's a little confusing. So again, duality encompasses the idea of good and bad, and that might be the most important word, the idea of good and bad, because what is good and bad, right? But gender, of course, does not. And where it's the same, though, is that there has to be separation in order to combine things differently. In order to create, you must combine things differently. Or in other words, in order to have something different than what is already there, you have to have duality, you have to have gender, you have to have the impetus and the work done. And the impetus is more of a male thing. Several months ago, I did 2 meditations. One was about masculine principle, and one was about feminine principle. I urge you to go back and look at those there on the All One Piece YouTube, I'm sorry, YouTube channel, All One Piece YouTube channel. And because the masculine is the architecture and the beginning and the impetus. Again, you can kind of see it reflected in the sperm and the ovum. The sperm has the information that says, get to work. Now we're joining together to do this. But the egg actually has all of the nutrients. The sperm has nothing but the DNA that it participates in giving, and the impetus without which nothing happens. It's like, here's the blueprint. And if the sperm has a Y chromosome, it's one thing. If it has an X chromosome, it's another. So it's a male or a female. So it kind of sets the pattern. But the egg has all the work. And that's what they were talking about in this. They didn't mention the sperm and the egg, but they said the masculine impetus is then, or it happens, then the female, I shouldn't say female because I don't want to confuse those two, so forgive me. The feminine principle does all the work, basically. So it's really interesting. I thought about this so much because I was raised in the church, and then for a while I was in another church, and I noticed that it was the men who were the ministers and the women who did all the work. And I don't know that that's the way it's intended to do, but I know that's the way it manifested in the churches. The women did all the work. The men were the ones who decided what work needed to be done, and the women did all the work. And I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be or anything like that. But what I do think is that is another example of a manifestation that has come into our being, coming into our world, come into our a way of being, I should say. So, and the other interesting thing I thought was, this is really interesting to me. A feminine corpuscle, and I'm reading now directly from the Kabbalion, a feminine corpuscle becomes detached from, or rather leaves, a masculine corpuscle. And by corpuscle, they just mean atomic particles, right? So a feminine atomic particle becomes attached from, or rather leaves, a masculine atom or atomic particle, and it starts on a new career. It actively seeks a union with the masculine corpuscle at that point, being urged by a natural impulse to create new forms of matter and energy. So I'm going to read that again. A feminine corpuscle becomes detached from, or rather leaves, a masculine corpuscle and starts on a new career. And it actively seeks a union then with a masculine corpuscle, being urged by a natural impulse to create new forms of energy or matter. So what does that remind you of? I thought of the Adam and Eve story. Eve was taken, Adam was created first. And the myth is that Adam was lonely and God took from him a rib and created woman from that rib. And this Hermetic principle reminds me of that myth. Apropos of nothing. I don't make any meaning out of that. I just think it's really interesting that this ancient Hermetic principle is reflected in the creation myth of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Isn't that interesting? So Adam and Eve were the beginning of creation. Adam couldn't create until he had Eve. And again, those people, Adam and Eve, are mythological metaphors for the masculine and feminine principle. They, in the Garden of Eden, they could not create Cain and Abel or all the rest of us without having been split apart and coming back together and making new combinations.
Isn't that same principle of the combining of the masculine and feminine present in pretty much all the myths of a variety of society? I know it is in Egypt and with the Iroquois and a number of Native American, plus in Indian.
Yes.
You know, all the myths. You know, reading Joseph Campbell, everything, you know, is basically from the same basic universal law.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. So we create myths like Adam and Eve to explain the principles that we observe and that we feel in our being, don't we? And it's consistent throughout every culture. You're absolutely spot on right about that. I think that's so interesting. I love that Bill Maher did an interview with Joseph Campbell on PBS back in 2009, I want to say. And no, it was before then. It was 2000. Was when I came back from, it was 2001. That's when it was, 2001. And so I bought it and I listened to it over and over because it's just so fascinating. And he does go through how all of these principles are extant in every culture, and they look different, they sound different, and they have a flavor that is probably imposed upon them by the culture from which they came, but they're all really the same when you basically look at the foundation of them. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So understanding gender is understanding the elements of creation. There's an initial impetus, which is masculine, a signal to begin, a design idea, basically. And then there's the feminine, active, creative work. This is true on all planes of existence, the Kabbalion says, all planes of existence. So even in the non-physical planes of existence, there exists the energy, the impetus, and the creation, the feminine creation principle. So it's like as above, so below. The natural impulse of an atom to create to create a molecule, the repulsion of atoms, the attraction of atoms, chemical affinities, right? Loves and hates in between people. These are all evidence of the creative force that resides in the cosmos on all planes. One of the things I am loving about these Changing of the Gods episodes is Richard Tarnas talks about the cosmos as being conscious, and that we are all part of that consciousness. Kind of like, he doesn't use this example, but it's kind of like a hologram. A hologram, if you take one piece of a hologram, it contains everything in the entire picture that you're looking at. So the hologram has the whole in the part. It's the same with our DNA. You can take a DNA and you can tell of a person, you can tell you can tell everything about them by their DNA. And so it's like it contains in the DNA the entirety of the person. Every piece of DNA is the same. So it's as above, so below, as above, so below. These are all evidence of the creative force that lives in the cosmos on all planes. And I want to say that again, because there is a consciousness and a purpose to everything that happens. The universe, the cosmos, I should say, because the cosmos is maybe bigger than the universe. The cosmos is the entirety of the intention of the universes that are created and everything within those universes. The cosmos is conscious. And as Richard Tarnas said in one of the episodes, possibly even sentient. Not our kinds of sentience, but sentient. I mean, it has been discovered in recent years that plants have a consciousness. Animals we know have a consciousness. It's a different vibration level of consciousness, but it's a consciousness. They know to turn toward the sun. They know to draw water from the earth. They know what to do. And that is a consciousness of sorts. And also, as we all have known, we've read the book about, what's the guy's name? I can't remember, that wrote the water book. Oshu, I don't know.
Emoto, Dr.
Yeah.
Emoto.
Thank you, Dr. Emoto. Thank you, who wrote the book about the vibration that happens when you love something and how that affects the crystals of water, and as opposed to when you hate something, how that affects and messes up the crystals of water. So we all know that the consciousness is pervasive in the universe. And if there's a consciousness pervasive in the universe, and if there is a gender everywhere in the universe, and the gender's purpose is to create, think about that. It's reflected in young people wanting to find each other and make love. Well, everybody, not just young people, but I mean, especially, young people having that just brimming energy of seeking out the other, that brimming energy that they are so full of when they are young. That resides in all of us at all times, in every plane and in every person and in every animal and in every plant, et cetera, et cetera. So the gender is the important part of a gender, not the important part, the interesting part of gender is that we have, as they talked about again in the Changing of Gods, there are archetypes that are reflected in our energy fields, in our bodies, in the universe. There are archetypes. And what has happened is the masculine has become almost rampant. The masculine is the part of us that wants to charge ahead, take over, take charge, get what we need, do what we want to do, et cetera, et cetera. And that has run amok, at least that's what is being said by a lot of very wise people. That has run amok, and it's time for balancing, not a time to get rid of the masculine by any shape, but it is time to balance that. There is a Hopi wisdom saying, which is, when the grandmothers speak, the earth will be healed. When the grandmothers speak, the earth will be healed. And sure enough, there are a series of books now called the Grandmothers Speak series, and it's by Sharon McErlane, and it is, they have meditations, they call it the Net of Light, and they are bringing back the feminine principle of creation. And I watched the first part of that Changing of Gods episode 4, and they were talking about Oshun, the African goddess of sweet water and love. And when she leaves, things dry up. You cannot sustain life without her, no matter how much you conquer, no matter how many, like Alexander the Great, no matter how many worlds you conquer, you cannot sustain it unless you have love, unless you have sweet water, unless you have that which nurtures and creates with you that of something new. The masculine principle, when it runs amok, tends to want to create its own self over and over and over again. It wants to stay in the same place. It wants to be, it doesn't want to stay in the same place. It wants to create more and have more and build more, but it wants all of that more to be of the same character. Whereas the feminine comes in, and the feminine wants to create something different. The feminine wants to allow something different. And isn't that what's going on in our world right now? Something different is emerging, and there is a great backlash of, no, let's go back to the 50s, or let's go back to let's go back to the time when white people were supreme. Let's go back, let's go back, let's go back, let's go back. It's really playing out in our a country, and also in Europe and all of the world that I am familiar with. It is happening. And so that great balancing is happening now. That great balancing is happening now. So yeah, I want to hear what you all think of this. And I want to say, before I leave this principle, that we're talking about the impetus and the creation work. And that's the masculine principle, has feminine principles. Each of us contains that in ourselves. We encourage one or the other sometimes, but we all contain it, and it is contained within us, and it's contained around us. But we are probably needing to encourage the feminine principle within ourselves, not the women, but the feminine principle. However, it is reflected in the fact that women are coming to ascendancy. It's reflected. It's not, not all women are good and all men are bad, obviously, but it is reflected in the fact that the women are coming into ascendancy. So within ourselves, we must balance the yin and the yang. And we sometimes have to go further in one direction than we do in the other, because we're already so far out of balance. So those principles are the only way that we can create something new. And unless we want to stay where we are, we have to change. We have to do something different if we want things to change. We have to think something different if we want things to change. We have to feel something different and allow the feelings of something different if we want things to change. So I've talked quite a bit, and now I am curious what you all thought about when you heard any of that. Just pick apart. In particular, I'm interested in if anybody had any thoughts about duality and gender.
Well, I'm feeling the supreme male energy on the planet, which is seeming to express itself with all the military action and all the fighting and the demonstrations and the elite wanting to hold on to power and crush the poor people, and all this domination playing out, and then I'm seeing these feminine movements going on where like women are trying to help other women with their birth choices and their like birth control and issues where young women are struggling, and I'm so it's interesting that this male and female, and I'm trying to not get into male bashing and saying, oh, it's all the male's fault because they're making wars, and I'm trying to see the similarities in the polarity and the gender issue, and it just seems like there's definitely this battle going on between the gender and polarity, and there's so much shifting and but these, I'm feeling like new sprouts are coming out, and sprouts of more equality, like the Aquarian age promises, where poor people are speaking out, and downtrodden people are being listened to more, getting the chance to tell their stories and receive empathy, and so I don't know where I'm going with all this. I'm still just trying to figure out how to apply all of this to my day-to-day life, and balance the male and the feminine within my own being, because I know I need to learn to be more assertive and own my male side more. So anyways, I'm not sure what I was saying, but it's an interesting thing going on.
It is. Thank you for sharing. And I did understand where you were going with that. It makes sense to me what you were saying. There is, the masculine within us, and I prefer to call it the masculine rather than the male, because then that gets kind of confusing, but the masculine within us is that part of us that it can be the impulse to create. And that is something that's very important, because we who maybe hold the principles of the feminine sweet water, as Oshun was called in the African tradition, those who hold those principles as important need the impetus of the masculine to create. So the masculine is very, very important, but if it doesn't include the feminine, or if it only subjugates or dominates the feminine, then it's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. So I understood exactly what you were saying. That was beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Your question about gender versus the duality or polarity, what occurs to me is that within gender, there's a duality. Male, the masculine energy can be controlling, or it can be allowing. That's a pretty good duality there. The feminine aspect can be the same. And so I think the universal laws are basically true throughout, no matter what the situation is. And so anything taken to extremes can be good or bad. It can be either way, based on the extremes you go to. So that's the duality that I see anyway. And I think that, in many instances, the middle ground in duality may be better. And it's the same, maybe the same thing with gender. If you'd have just the feminine or just the masculine energies, it doesn't work anywhere near as well as if you have them together, sharing, if you will. I thought last night the part 4 of the Changing of the Gods talked about the feminist movement in the United States. When it originally started back in the 1800s, the leaders of the feminist movement in the United States met with and talked with the elders in the Iroquois Nation, which it was primarily a maternal society. The feminine sides had control over an awful lot of stuff, but they needed the women needed the men, and the men needed the women, obviously, and the masculine needed the feminine needed the masculine, and that I wish they'd been more successful in getting that involved in our government in the United States and in other governments too. But it seems to make more sense from a evolving standpoint anyway.
Yeah.
And not just evolving, but increasing the vibration would be better if one of the energies was not trying to be so controlling.
Yeah, it's control is very addictive, I think. And I believe it feels good to begin something, to initiate something. And then we want to hold on to that feeling instead of allowing the rest of it to happen. We want to hold on to that feeling. So it's a dance, isn't it? It's always a dance between the masculine and feminine. I think that, I've always heard that the matriarchies that of yore, which were way, way, way long ago, were very peaceful. But the problem, of course, was that if they didn't have a lot of defenses. And so they were easily overcome. So when the masculine fights the feminine is subjugated.
But the duality exists there because there were Amazons too, which was a matriarchal society and a very, very strong
That's true.
warrior society. So.
That's true. That's true. So the ideal, of course, is for the male or the masculine and the feminine energies to participate together in a higher ideal rather than a personal desire. I want this to happen and I'm going to make it happen, or I want this to happen and I'm going to make it happen. So the idea
and to increase the vibration versus keeping it the same or reducing it. And I think that's what's going on right now, in my opinion, is the people that are fighting change are trying to reduce the vibration and take it down to a significantly lower frequency.
Yeah.
Using the negative effects of power.
The negative effects of power.
Rather than the higher vibrations or higher you know how they have the lower and higher things in astrology, Indira, you know that, where every sign has its higher qualities and lower.
Higher octave, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's, I don't know. That came up when you were talking before.
Ah,
Jim was saying something. I was thinking it was power. You know,
yeah,
and it's the negative aspects of power rather than the higher,
yeah.
our creative power. We are all powerful. It depends on how we use or misuse our power,
You know,
whether it's
and
masculine or feminine.
yes, you are right on target, I think, because that's what we are called to do right now, is to use our own masculine energy to design a new earth, to imagine and design a new earth. That's the masculine energy. It is not as immediately satisfying as conquering another nation, and seeing the physical result of your fighting and getting. But it is what we are called to do, to use that masculine principle to imagine and to design and to call into ourselves, to attract to ourselves the resources, the feminine principle, to create that which we are designing. We don't have to be male or female to do that. We have to be human to do that. That is the one thing that, so far as we know, only humans on the earth plane have that capability of imagination and creation and design. We are being called to that. The feminine principle is not accustomed to being able to move forward without being dominated, or there's a lot of trauma in our lineage, in our bodies, in our psyche from generations and generations of oppression. But it is fully within our power to imagine and design and create and attract the resources to us from our enthusiasm, from the genius of our design, because when we talk about the new earth, for instance, I've been thinking about that a lot, the new earth. And when we talk about creating the new earth, and that is referred to in the book of Revelations, nobody knows exactly what it means. Eckhart Tolle wrote a book about it. And what I understand about the new earth is it is here on here on earth, when we have cleaned up our lower chakras and we are able to watch pain go by, or even have pain without reacting to it, but responding in compassion and surrender if we need to, but we are not responding with anger, with whatever, it's being able to, with defensiveness, with all of the tools that we have available, with blocking our feelings, all the tools that we have available to not being our complete authentic selves. The new earth to me is a complete authentic self, a world of complete authentic selves living in harmony. And yes, having pain is part of birth and death and rebirth. It's part of it. But surrendering and not defending against. I was just listening to Joseph Aldo talk earlier this week, and he was talking about the pain that he had been in, how he surrendered to it so completely that he is able to just go in. He went to a dentist's office and would not take Novocaine when they were going to do a wisdom tooth, whatever, not wisdom tooth.
root canal.
Thank you, root canal. He had the entire, and he said the dentist said to him after he finished, because he couldn't believe he didn't want Novocaine. He said, not only did you not flinch, but you were like in a meditation, like you were at the beach or something. And that's because he has had so much pain that he has had to surrender to and be with. That to me is the new earth. The new earth is a world where we are where we are one with what is.
Sort of
And yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Please.
Well, I was just thinking it's a loving detachment. It's like the eagle's eye view. It's very Aquarius. I mean, it's no coincidence we're entering the age of Aquarius.
Yes.
Like
yes.
very eagle eye view of things. And you see the whole picture. And so that stuff just moves through you. It's like the ascended masters do now. They don't feel pain, or they don't, you know, they just look at us with, I don't want to say indifference, but it kind of is. It's just like they know everything's in divine order. Everything's fine. They don't sit there and cry for us. It's almost like an apathy, but it's a loving spiritual apathy. It's just they just know the jig is up. I mean, they know the real deal and what's really happening. So
I wish there was a different word besides detachment, because detachment kind of connotates all kinds of things that it doesn't mean, but I know exactly what you're trying to say. It's that divine ability to just be. And I wouldn't say they don't feel pain. I would say they don't experience pain. And the reason I say that is the pain happens, but they don't experience it as pain. They are able to just be with it in divine flow, like you said. And so it's a word thing, but I get exactly what you're saying.
I think that look is just the look of love. Yeah. Not detachment, you know, not apathy or anything else, just love. Maybe agape.
Agape love, yes. And love, we think of love as this burning desire, but desire, it's the burning without the desire, maybe. It's the let it be what it is. It is being completely with what it is and okay with it and loving it. Loving, you know, that old saying, you know, about if you want to do what you love, start with loving what you do. You know, if you don't like what you're doing, and you think, oh, I want to do something that I love, start with loving what you do, and then that will be drawn to one. So, yeah. It's a beautiful place we're moving into. I love that we're moving into the age of Aquarius. I like what you said about the eagle eye view. And Aquarius is a sign that is sometimes described as aloof. And again, it's another word. I wish there was some different word. Somebody needs to invent a different word besides aloof and detached and all of that stuff. But the Aquarian energy is something that has the ability to see things, like you say, from a distance. Instead of being immersed in the grass, in the weeds, it sees the whole forest and is able to make peace. So I like that. I like that. And it also, I think the Aquarian energy is an understanding of oneness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that comes with the eagle eye view, is the understanding of oneness.
Yes.
And so the compassion is for oneself, because nobody is separate.
So I'll just say I have a couple thoughts listening to all this. First, I want to say I don't know if I know enough about duality to really speak to it, but as you were talking about it, Indira, when I think about the differences between gender and duality, what comes up for me is with gender, there's an energy. Not that there's not an energy with duality. Like I said, I don't know enough about it. But for me, when I think of gender, I attach traits to it, which is energy, which then I think speaks to a difference for me. So I don't really know what I'm saying, but that's what came up for me. The other thing that I was saying is thinking about not liking the words detachment or aloof. I think part of the space that we're in right now is changing the dynamics and the meaning of those words. We don't like those words because we've attached meaning to them, but we can unattach meaning to them as well. And a few days ago, I had moments of like, I can't believe I'm living during this time. But more and more as I'm being exposed to things and watching how things play out, I have hope and gratitude. And when we talk about the gender piece, I'm in awe, and maybe it's only because I'm watching one side of the news, but I'm in awe of the depiction of women and men who are taking a stand saying, I'm here and we're working together as one. And I'm excited. I don't know how, I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I don't need to know how it's all going to play out, but I'm excited what we're going to learn walking through this. And I have hope.
Me
And I
too.
see the young people taking a stand. And I'm just like incredibly grateful and inspired by that. And it's almost like whatever this energy is to the masculine energy, because I'm going to attach it to that because that's how it has meaning for me, of this power and control. It's almost like, we're on our last life and we're not going to go down without a fight. And, when I see people taking a stand, I just am like in awe. I don't know what I would do in that situation if my home was being invaded, my homeland. But I mean, in some aspects, my homeland is being invaded by thinking that I don't align with, and I know how uncomfortable that makes me feel, and disheartening and sad and disappointed in certain people I know. And, but then I see things like, when they interview some 80-year-old guy that says, I'm here to help, this is my land. And I just, I don't know. I'm rambling, but I have hope. And those are my thoughts.
Thank you for those thoughts. I like what you said in the beginning too, and everything you said was just really resonant with me. And in the beginning, you were saying that, the difference between duality and gender may be something about energy, and that kind of makes sense to me because energy and polarity and attraction and repulsion and all those things are part of creation, combining things differently. And duality is, I'm thinking through this as I think about what you said, duality is a concept of, maybe duality is inclusive of gender. In other words, the all is undifferentiated. In order to differentiate, there had to be more than one. So that would be duality, but maybe like, all jacuzzis are hot tubs, but not all hot tubs are jacuzzis. So, maybe gender is a form of duality, but it's not equal to duality, perhaps. Anyway, that's because immediately when you said that, I began to think about the fact that the feminine corpuscle separates from the masculine and immediately tries to join it again to create something new. And those are energies and attractions. So that makes sense to me, what you said. And I too have hope. I really do. And I think that eagle eye that Bava was mentioning is the key to hope. We cannot get lost and bogged down in the what's going on right at this moment, and the sad stuff. I stop and pray for those people, but I don't get bogged down in it. I just, it's all part of, we're all one, and I am them, and I am Vladimir Putin, and I am the energies that I have are expressing in the earth right now, because one part of the energy is trying to suppress the other part, and that will build a pressure, and that will, it's like, remember lava lamps from the 70s? It reminds me of that. It's just, things have to move. Things that are there, it's just a contained system that's going to have to move and the suppression leads to expression. And
one of the things we have to realize too is that we all created this war.
yes,
Like, that's the thing, we have to look at our shadow side and take responsibility that every negative thought I've ever had helped all the shit that's happening on this planet right now. So
wow,
I think that's our task right now, is to be so super vigilant of what, like you said, don't focus on it. Yes, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but put out what you want. Don't, I don't watch the news. I don't get into that shit. I just put out what I want and envision, like today in meditation, envision the whole planet engulfed in the violet flame. Personally, I think that's our most powerful tool right now and most important tool that we can use. So I'm seeing what I want. I'm seeing peace, peaceful lands, peaceful peoples. We are freaking powerful. The more negativity and the more we focus on that crap. And again, that's like, it's weird because then people will say, oh, you're detached, you're apathetic, you're not feeling. No, that's not true. I had a cry this morning. I have my moments where it's absolutely freaking heartbreaking, and I go there. I don't stay there. I used to in the past stay there. That doesn't help me. It doesn't help anybody. Yeah, my heart's breaking. Yeah, I'll feel that. But then it's like, no, we have to create what we want. People have to wake up out of the matrix, know how powerful we are. We are the ones we've been waiting for. It's cliche, but it's true.
yeah,
It's not the big spiritual teachers and the gurus, and I'm sorry, no offense, but I mean,
No,
it is
not
every
taken.
single one. It's every single one of us. Every single one of us. We can't depend on the gurus sitting in the caves and monasteries anymore. They carried us for a really long time. Now it's us. We have to step up. Every single soul on this planet has to step up and do our part. And so Ho'oponopono, the violet flame, I think those are really two really useful, crucial tools right now.
Yeah.
Because Ho'oponopono is basically, healing what I've put out there to add to this crap, and nobody wants to look at that. I mean, it's heartbreaking to look at that and know that you're part of creating that, but we're also part of the solution. We're the part of that's going to heal it too. And all these young kids coming up, ever since harmonic convergence in 85, everybody born since then, those are the ones that are going to change the world. They're stepping up now. They're stepping in. These young people have a whole different set of DNA, whole different set of spiritual attributes and knowings of what they're supposed to step into. We've been the way showers. We're the ones that are to support these young people. And I think we support them by holding the light, just holding the freaking line. It's not always easy, but I think it's really important right now.
Wow.
Hmm.
Boy, you said a mouthful.
Very well said,
Yes.
Bava.
You said a mouthful. I love that you began with, we have to take responsibility for every negative thought we have. We contribute constantly. And by taking responsibility, I don't think you meant, and I'm sure you didn't mean, and I know that it's not the point is not to say, oh, mea culpa, I'm so bad. No, and I know that's not what you meant, but the point, I just wanted to clarify to say that isn't what that means. It means to recognize it, take responsibility, and turn the corner and do something different.
Yeah, because if we beat ourselves up over it and damn
Then that's
ourselves,
another negative thought that goes into the collective.
exactly.
Yes.
Which I think is another lesson of like, I've got to love myself, even though I've been an asshole in here and there and done this and put out this. I have to forgive and love myself, because if I can't do that for myself, how the hell am I going to do it for you?
Yeah.
So,
And
we
when
got some
we-
big lessons. We've got some huge freaking lessons. They are hard.
And when negativity comes up, when the negative thoughts, acknowledge them, recognize them and let them go.
Yep.
Because if we linger on them, that just makes them stronger.
Yep.
And as above, so below, it makes the universe, it puts it out to the universe, the negativity to the universe. And the universe doesn't need that.
No. Think of something positive immediately. I got to make myself, even if I'm not feeling it, I'll put something out negative or have a negative thought. And even I have to I have to be conscious of like, I'll just say something in the opposite of that, something positive. Even if I'm not 100% feeling it, I will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like it's habitual. We've all been habituated into crap, into the system, into so much crap of beating us down of who we really are.
Yeah.
And it's changing,
Yeah.
and that's what the fight is about. The
Yeah.
powers that be don't want us to know how powerful we are, because they will lose their footing.
Yeah.
But we are powerful enough to recreate heaven on earth, and I think we will. I'm hopeful
we will
too.
too.
I have hope too.
I think, one of the gifts of Donald Trump is that he showed us how it is possible. I mean, think about it. They keep showing clips of somebody that says Donald Trump's going to run for president. Everybody laughed. It's like, oh, you're not serious. I know you're not serious. But look, his ability to, in the face of everything, all the evidence to the contrary, he held on and held on and held on and held on. And while he used magic, in my opinion,
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
to create something for himself, he at least gave us a pattern. Not that we want to step on people and do all that. I don't mean that at all. I know you know that I don't mean that at all. What I do mean is that in the face of all evidence to the contrary, we can believe in peace. In the face of all evidence to the contrary, we can see the new earth in our lifetimes. All evidence to the contrary, we can have that same, what's the attitude that he had that I would call it? We can have that same determination, that same certainty, that same impetus to create what we know is true, what we know we want. We can have that same desire, that same masculine principle within us as used toward creation of the new earth.
Yeah.
We can have that. And he showed us that it was possible. Nobody would have believed 10 years ago that Donald Trump would have been our president. Nobody would have believed it.
He had a major spiritual
Even
role.
Donald Trump maybe didn't even believe it. So, but
Yeah.
pardon me.
He played his role. He played his role.
He played, and that's the other part of it. He played it.
I thank his soul.
Yeah.
I really do. I have much gratitude for his soul.
Yeah.
I really, really do. I don't really like his personality, his out picturing of certain things that he, but his soul, I'm really grateful. And he brought up the shadow side. He showed us.
Yes, he did.
He brought up all this shit that's been simmering on this earth for tons and tons of years.
Under
It
the surface.
cannot
Yeah.
be healed if it doesn't come up.
Yep.
He brought it all up.
He was kind of like Pluto, a roto-rooter, bringing it all up.
Exactly.
Yeah. bringing all the shit up. And it's like, oh, that was there, or what? I didn't know that was there. But it's there.
Definitely a Pluto rotor-rooter. I love that.
Roto-rooter, Pluto, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Pluto
from,
brings up all
I
the
borrowed that
crap.
from
Oh my
Richard
God.
Dean. He calls Pluto the rotor.
He paved the way now for the Pluto return for the US.
Yeah. So, mm,
It's all good.
so what's been going on with everybody?
Well, I've been trying to really make these Kybalion principles a part of me and use them in my life to create a higher vibration and more of a high frequency life, so that I spread that more to other people. And I'm sometimes, fighting with myself and my feelings that I'm not good enough, and that I can't really manifest what I want, and those kind of thoughts. So I really need support from the community to believe in myself and to help me to feel confident with my voice and with speaking out more, and just living from my heart more, and finding a way to connect with people more, because I live I'm pretty much unseen and unheard most of the time, I feel like. So I'm trying to find ways to step out of that and use these principles. And sometimes I feel like I'm taking one step forward and two steps back, and then I'm comparing my frequency to other people and thinking, oh, this is embarrassing. I have such a low frequency. It's so just trying to figure out how to navigate my way through.
Yeah. Well, you already know this. I know you do, but comparing is just a waste of energy, because you're only responsible for yourself. And plus, you never know what's going on with anybody else anyway. You never know whether they go home at night and cry themselves to sleep. You never know that. So comparing is just, yeah. I knowing you all these years, Ishwari, I've seen you come so far and move so far along the spectrum of spiritual in realization. And so I am witness to that, whether you see it in your darkest moments or not. I'm certainly witness to that.
Oh, thank you, Indira. Yeah, I guess I'd just like to have more of an influence on my environment, like,
Yeah, I feel that. I know what you're saying. But, we have what we have. It's kind of like that whole, if you want to love what you do, if you want to do what you love what you do. It's the same thing. If we want to have influence on the larger, we have to use the influence that we have on our own plane of existence, whether it's smiling at neighbors when you see them, or praying for somebody, or just imagining a new earth. That's a big, powerful thing. You are so, I've known you for years, and I know how easily you go into meditation, and how really elevated you get in meditation. And you have, and that gives you a certain power that other people don't easily access. So your power may be to use that elevated state that you can achieve to imagine, to create, to want something different and imagine it, not for yourself, just for yourself, but for humanity, for the cosmos, you know, as you are a part of that. So I think, yeah, I think that whole, if you want greater influence, exert the influence you have.
Plus, I think we have more influence than we think we do.
Exactly.
We really do. And whatever we have to know it's enough. I mean, I do the same thing, Ishwari. I get into that comparing, which I think everybody on the planet does to some degree. I think if they deny that, they're lying, because I think it's just a part of humanity.
Yeah.
We just compare ourselves. I get stuck in that. I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough. And I've been working really, really hard and praying really hard to just know, you know what? Even if I'm unemployed, doing what I really don't, whatever, I'm out here flailing a little bit. Oh, well, I'm doing a lot on the inner realms when I sleep. I'm doing a lot in meditation. So I'm really trying to focus on what I do. And that's enough. It's a hell of a lot more than a lot of people are doing. We are doing really important work, even if we do one modicum of it. Yeah. It's like, it's huge. It's huge. Yeah. So you've got beautiful energy. You've been out there as a powerhouse for God and for spirit for as long as I've known you. And I think you're doing way more than you think you are. This whole world has beat us down into believing that we're nothing and that we're powerless, and we're not at all. So I love you and I appreciate you, and I'm glad you're on the planet because I know you help a hell of a lot.
Thank you very much, Bava. I love you too.
The saying is that we're all our own worst critics.
Yep.
And you're showing that right now. But I mean, you're criticizing yourself an awful lot more than anybody else would think about, because all of us, everybody that knows you, sees your light, and they see your creative ability, and we appreciate it. And it has a very positive effect on us. Anybody that knows you, super positive effect on all of us, and therefore it has a positive effect on the world. So you are generating an awful lot of positive energy, even though sometimes you don't see it yourself. It's kind of like, you ever looked at the backside of a mirror? Flip the mirror around, look at the back, what's there? To make a mirror work, the backside of the mirror has to be dark. It has to be, not even opaque. It has to be totally dark for the mirror to work. Well, instead of looking at the backside of the mirror, turn it around and look at the front side. You might surprise yourself.
Thank you, Aruna Dev. I miss seeing you in person, and I send you love. I really greatly appreciate everybody's feedback, and thank you, Indira. I send you love too. I feel so connected with this community and so very grateful for it. And I know we're dreaming a new world into being. I know we're doing it day by day.
Yes, indeed. Very, very. And the creations that you've done, I mean, you're an author, you've written 2 books, you an amazing voice, you sing in the choir, you sing, you've written, not written, but made albums that you've sung. and you paint beautiful pictures, and you create constantly, you know. And so that creation is really important. You're bringing those energies into manifestation, and that creates a pattern that the rest of us can follow. So yeah, thank you. So
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I'm coming more and more into the understanding that it kind of has to do with what Bava said in the beginning about taking responsibility for our thoughts. I'm coming more and more into the understanding that the power that we have is not always the power that is obvious in the third dimension. You know, it's the power that we have for. Okay, so if you are thinking a thought that is not self-serving, that is not positive, let's use the word positive for lack of a better word, and then you're thinking of a beautiful thought, and you're thinking back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, the middle of that is kind of like nothing, right? But if you focus on one thought for long enough, the power of that builds up. That's what is important about mantra and chanting and kirtan and those things, is the building of the power of focus into one thought at a time, right? And in fact, I was studying Patanjali's, I never say that right, Yoga Sutras. And in the very beginning of that ancient text, he says the point of meditation is focus. It's not to hit the higher planes and all of this stuff. It is to practice focus, because once you clean up the lower chakras and once you are able to hold a thought that is creative and beautiful, that meditation, that ability to focus comes into play and builds and builds and builds and builds and creates. That is more powerful than almost anything. So I am learning, I'm coming more and more and more to have the knowledge that that is my job more than anything, is to focus on what I want to create and focus on it, not equivocate and say, but I don't know if I can do that. To clean up all that crap so that I can focus on what I want to create, so that I can build the power that comes with that and see it into manifestation. That's how manifestation happens. It starts with an idea, and then it builds with focus and concentration and energy. That's almost the most important thing that we can do. And maybe it is the most important thing that we can do.
I'm just gonna say, as I'm listening to this, what's coming to me is what happens for me when I feel like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not as active as I should be, and I'm putting those stipulations on it or judgments.
Yeah.
And what came to me is it's like in some aspect we're living a play right now, and where we all have a role in this playing out. And I feel like whether it's the energy, the cosmos, the greater whatever, I don't have the language for it, but we're participants here, participating in either helping to shift this, move forward or not. And just like a play, not everyone can have the lead role, but you can't have a play without the stage crew setting things up or the people marketing it. And that keeping in mind with what the strengths are that I have, that I can use to really kind of contribute a shift. And it also made me think of something I read in some of the Not Alike grandmothers work, is that, the grandmothers, the energies up there are saying, we're here kind of pulling the strings or doing what we can do up here. And we don't necessarily need the rest of you getting involved to kind of shake things up or offset what we're trying to do. And I know I'm not saying it how I read it, but for me, it's sometimes reminding myself that sometimes it's best just to stay out of the way. And if that means whether me meditating or sending out positive energy or doing whatever it is, making sure I'm putting my best self forward in a day, you know what? I think that can have more meaning than me feeling I need to go like fight the front line somewhere.
Yeah.
And I just read something this morning that I just wanted to share because it was even more like of an aha moment. It was a Twitter thread of commenting about Zelensky's speech and his presence. And so, and they said, what are you taking from it? And someone put, he's speaking to people as their brother, not the father. And it puts it in perspective of this gender discussion we've had in that the energy that people are picking up is it's like, we're brothers and sisters. We're here to step up and to kind of take responsibility and make this a better place versus I'm just going to say a father where it's like telling you what you need to do and how you're supposed to act. And I'm like, that to me was just like another thing that we are in the midst of a shift.
Wow. Wow. And people are responding to that. I bet he's a lot more popular in Ukraine than Putin is in Russia. Of course, Putin doesn't allow anybody to say so, but he's a lot more popular because of that energy of cooperation. Ooh, I love it.
My hope is too that it would help kind of shift the tone here in America.
Oh, wouldn't that
But
be? Yeah. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
all in time.
All in time. All in time.
And I just want to say, when Indira was listing off all of the talents and creative energies that you have, I was like, wow, like, how can I get it because I do it to myself, but how can you think you don't contribute? Because as you were saying what you were saying, how you were feeling, I found myself thinking, geez, I wonder what it would be like if you weren't here and I wasn't looking at your square this morning. And I would be missing that.
Thank you, Margie. That's very, very kind of you.
Just saying what's on my mind.
I send you lots of love.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Baba, I love your smile. You have such a beautiful smile. Wow. Light up the screen.
I'll just also throw out there, I have to go in for a medical procedure Friday that I've had done before, and it isn't anticipated to be anything significant, but I could really use be appreciative of some positive energy this week that everything goes well and that the doctor is able to get what they need, which they really believe isn't anything benign, or that is benign, it isn't anything serious. And that if they can't get everything, then I might have to go in for a hysterectomy. And that's like a lot of time off of work, which is terrifying for me financially. So I'm just trying to stay in the moment, envision the best, trust the process, and believe I'm where I'm supposed to be. But I could really, I would appreciate and ask for some healing energy.
Let's take this moment now to join our hearts together on the etheric planes and support Margie and know that the light of God surrounds her and that we are that light, and the love of God enfolds her and we are that love, and the power of God protects her and we are that power. The presence of God watches over her and we are that presence. Wherever we are, wherever Margie is, God is, and we ask all of our teachers and guides and the healing energies of the universe to surround and support her And we also ask for the perfection in the spirit or in the surgeon's hand, that he or she would have perfect movements and guided movements in every moment. And we just reach ahead and surround that surgeon in that moment in time, and all of the medical people that support Margie in this. Thank you. Thank you, Spirit, for allowing us to direct these energies and be a part of these energies. And we use our willpower with a capital W to surround Margie and support her in this moment. And so it is.
Whew, I just felt that. Thank you, everyone.
I felt
And
it too.
for the record, my OB, the surgeon, is a badass woman.
Ah, right.
So
man.
I'm in like good hands.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So it's about time to close. I want to say that the next chapter is also about gender, but it's called, we have 2 more chapters, and they are called, let's see, mental gender. That's next time. And that's really interesting because that is more of what we're talking about today, mental gender. And then the last class about the Kabbalion in April is going to be her Hermetic axioms, which is, it's kind of when we bring all that together, right? And weave it into cause and effect and our part in it. So I would like to also just invite all of you to attend satsang on the 12th, second Saturday satsang. I'm going to have an announcement to make at that time. And so I hope you'll join me. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good one. So anyway, I thank you so much for being here with me. And thank you, Arunadev Shok, for letting me see the puppies. I miss them so much. So, hey, Calliope girl, my sweet baby. Anyway, God bless you all. Sat Gurnath Maharaj Ki Jai.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Love and
I'm going to
blessings.
turn off the recording.
Thank you. It was great to see everybody.
It's great to see you.
Thank you, Indira.
You are so welcome.